Hey everybody, it's Shadowstar here, and I'm going to be going over my top 5 episodes of Season 2. Now, obviously, as I've said in the past, Season 2 is absolutely my favorite season of Arrow. And with that being said, finding 5 episodes to make the top 5 was a lot more difficult than when I did it for Season 1. Honestly, there were so many to choose from, and it was so difficult to pick which ones made the top 5. And even still, I'm debating who makes the top 5, who's better than which episode is better than what. There's just so much in this season. But with that being said, I suppose we should just get on with it. Let's start with let's start with the 5th best episode, episode 19, The Man Under the Hood. This episode has a lot in it. There is so much in this episode. Obviously, Quentin has a great scene in this episode where he just shows how much he's come to respect the Arrow. It's one of my favorite Quentin moments. Honestly, I don't like the flip-flopping of Quentin, but in Season 2, when he respects the Arrow, it's just really good. There's also a lot of good Laurel stuff. I know, me praising Laurel, who would have thought, but hey, there are some good Laurel moments in Season 2, but there's also some bad ones. But this episode has some good ones, with Laurel trying to figuring out that Oliver is the Arrow. I mean, she was told by Slade, but now she's putting the pieces together and figuring out that Sarah and Oliver are the Arrow and the Canary, and there's so many good scenes about that. She doesn't directly tell him, but she has a line that confronts him about it. And then we get some foreshadowing with the Flash, because we have Deathstroke meeting Cisco and Caitlin. It's just so many. We have a great scene where we see like Cisco running from Deathstroke and fighting him off with a laser gun, and for like 3 seconds it becomes a sci-fi show, and we get some good foreshadowing of the Flash. But speaking of Deathstroke, there's a lot of Deathstroke in this episode when he decides to take over the base because he's looking for something, and we did a great fight scene with it's so quick and action packed with Oliver and Sarah and Diggle all trying to fight off Deathstroke, and he just stops them all. Man, this was a good episode that I didn't think I'd enjoy, but wow, there was a lot more in this episode than I remembered. Speaking of really good episodes, it's the 4th best episode, Suicide Squad. I'm not going to deny it. I really love the Suicide Squad in Arrow. I love pretty much every time they do the Suicide Squad, but you gotta start with the best version. And this one, we get Deadshot and Bronze Tiger all teaming up with Argus and Diggle. We get so many good scenes with Diggle and Deadshot working together. We're starting to redeem Deadshot as a character because we learn more about him and his daughter. We get more mentioning of Hive, which will be coming up much later on. There's just so many good scenes, you gotta hand it to them. I love Deadshot and Diggle working together. I love Argus. And there's so many action-packed scenes near the end with all the Suicide Squad and Diggle working together. It's just, normally I don't approve of a Diggle-centric episode, but man, this is such a good one. But let's move on to the 3rd best episode, and of course, we got to include the mid-season finale, which is way bigger than the previous mid-season finale. It's Three Ghost, the 3rd best episode, which obviously it's action-packed. We get a first time Oliver successfully defeats a Mirakuru soldier, which takes a lot for him. We get a lot of emotional scenes with, obviously, Oliver seeing the ghosts of Shadow, an action scene with Oliver seeing Slade's ghost, and then Tommy's ghost, which, hey, normally I don't care much for Tommy, but like I've said, Tommy is way better in death than he is alive, because they get to have more emotional scenes with him dead than alive, where we get Tommy inspiring Oliver to get back up. But that's just the start of it. We also have a lot of stuff with Barry, because Barry's still in this episode, and obviously this kickstarts the Flash, or at least kickstarts Barry getting his powers, which, this episode with both the Mirakuru soldiers and Barry getting his powers is the show slowly turning into what it will become. It started off as a gritty crime drama and slowly becomes this big, gritty superhero show with powers and action, and it's just amazing. There's a lot of Roy in this episode as well, because Roy gets a Mirakuru. Honestly, there's a lot. This is much better than the previous mid-season finale. But with the second best episode, it's the second last episode. Yeah, you're going to see a similar pattern to last time I did my top 5, but Streets of Fire, it's extremely action-packed. It pretty much, the last 3 episodes run together so well, but the last 2 especially. We get, first off, Malcolm is back. I love Malcolm. He's a villain. He's an anti-hero. He's whatever you want to call him. We get Malcolm finally meeting Thea. We get to see Malcolm facing off against a Mirakuru soldier. We get to see Felicity hit Isabella Rochev with a car. We get Sebastian Blood betraying Slade Wilson because, as awful as Sebastian has been, he gets to show that he's not as bad as everyone thinks, but he still isn't that great either, so it's an interesting scene. We also get Sarah coming back and truly cementing herself as not just an assassin, but a hero, the Canary. We also get Quentin leading the police. Quentin really takes on a leadership role. It all pays off, and obviously there's a lot of this episode is so action-packed. There's not a minute of there's not a dull moment. It's such an action-packed episode. Second last episode, it should be action-packed. But if you thought the second last episode was action-packed, well, the best episode is once again the finale. Yeah, I know, predictable, but it won't always be this way. But finales should be good, so there's no shame in saying it's the best. This finale was the first time in my reviews that I've actually given a 10 out of 10. But, like last episode, we still have some great scenes with Malcolm and Thea is going to join Malcolm at the end. We get the huge fight scene with Oliver versus Slade, both in past and present. It's so action-packed. I love the direction and the way it cuts between the past and the present, and the way it just parallels. I love Oliver finally outthinking Slade in what you think is going to be him declaring his love for Felicity, but really it's just a trick. Because he thinks Slade wants Laurel, so he tricks Slade to get Felicity just so he can get the cure close to her. And like I said before, I love Argus, I love the Suicide Squad. They're back again. They don't do much, but man, this episode has so many people. We get the Suicide Squad, and we get the League of Assassins. League of Assassins on Oliver and Sarah's side. We get a huge fight scene in the tunnels with Roy and the League of Assassins and Nyssa and Quentin and everyone. I love huge fight scenes with so many characters. We get to see them taking down Queen Consolidated and killing Isabella Rochev. We get the final ending with Slade in prison and his famous line of, "I keep my promises." It is just an incredibly action-packed episode. There is never a dull moment. We had so much to say about this episode. It's easy to say why this is my favorite episode of Season 2. Season 2 is my favorite season. This is probably my second favorite finale of Arrow, possibly even the Arrowverse. My favorite finale may not be this one, but this is my favorite season. These are my favorite episodes. Man, let me know what you thought the best episodes of Season 5 are, because last time I checked, my Season 1 top 5 was quite similar to a lot of people's, maybe swapping one. Whereas here, I've seen it's a lot more varied, so I'll be curious to see what people think compared to my list. But that is all. These are my top 5 episodes. Eventually, I will do one for I will do top 5 of Season 3 of Arrow. I have much more mixed feelings about Season 3, but we'll get into that eventually. It'll be a while, but I will do my top 5 of Season 3. So, if you enjoyed this, like, comment, and I will see you for Season 3.